Yeah.
So
We've gotten some insight into things that maybe they don't want us to have.
Dr. Lamb, we all presented while you were gone, and
Good.
We
everything
get
was great.
hundreds.
We're about ready to go.
Everybody
So
got
here you
100.
are.
Great.
You know we all made 100, so hey, that's good.
Yep.
Good. See,
We were nerdy.
I just sent everybody.
We were
You gotta
nerding
figure
out and
what's going
reflecting on
there.
our discussion post and comparing our stories with our principals.
I think he
left.
He left.
I'm here.
Okay.
I am here. I was getting bounce backs. I just sent everybody an email. I don't know what happened to Zoom, but that link disappeared. So we'll use this one. It'll be fine.
I even grabbed like the login code and put that in
Same.
as well, and that wouldn't work either. So
I don't know what has happened.
I was like, I'm just gonna check the Wednesday just to see if he's sitting there. And
yeah.
There you were.
That's the one that popped up for me tonight. So I don't know what happened. Zoom goes crazy. Well, I do know what happened. It updated.
Yes.
And it knocked that link out for some reason. But the bigger issue is I'm not too smart. I continue to try to use Zoom from my office. And every time I do, I have to disconnect from Gardner Web server and use it off of my phone hotspot. If something won't let me use it.
They have it blocked within the network.
But I'm the only one in the building that uses. I don't have a desktop. I have a laptop.
Oh, okay.
I twisted some arms and got a laptop. I told them that they should at least get into this century, that I didn't need a desktop. And so, for whatever reason, they have laptops blocked. And so, when it updates, it has something that I was using it the last few days at work and disconnecting it. And so, it's my own fault for trying to actually get technology to work in an office environment. Let's see who that is. Okay, but anyway. All right. So while we're waiting for others, some folks are going to present tomorrow night because they had conflicts tonight. So let me read the stars of the week, some good stuff that I read from you folks over the last couple of weeks. I missed you last week. All right. Liz made a good point. Types of school fundraising must fit the school or community. The more community-oriented things, and also somebody else made the point, if folks know that you're raising money for a specific thing for kids, they're more apt to participate. But as I said before, there's a sign in the yard in my neighborhood that the local high school, which is rich and affluent, is selling mattresses. Now, some communities, the mattresses, the cheapest one's $300 and the most expensive is over $1,000. Now, a lot of communities, I understand you don't have to sell as many units, but you aren't going to sell any units in some communities. So that's a great point on fundraising, but it should be community-based things, activities, if you can. Speaking of fundraising, Glenda made a good point. Never allow parents to handle money. That's, don't give them the temptation. That's a good one. Also, this is one that I got into with a charity that I'm involved in. Crowdfunding and GoFundMe must use approved vendors. Sometimes they take too big a cut, and sometimes, what is it? Where you get a code and it Venmo, or not Venmo. What is the one where you get a code and you scan the code and you can go and donate just by scanning the code with your phone? What is that called? Oh Lord. How do I not know that one? A QR code. A QR code.
QR code.
QR code. Now, you understand that QR codes, you have to pay a maintenance fee on those, and they take a percentage as well. So you got to be careful about using QR codes for fundraising, because sometimes the rules won't let you pay that out of the take. And so you better have that approved up front. Oh, we'll just make these nice little cards and hand them out. And then you understand that QR takes a cut or they take a fee. talking about hiring teachers, Jasmine made a good point. And she made an indirect point, but teachers need a bigger voice in hiring. Now, we think back to the APTEL, that the last thing that we did last semester, and we looked at Todd Whitaker's, kind of levels of school leadership. And at the pinnacle of that, the highest level of teacher leadership is to be involved in hiring new faculty. Unfortunately, we don't let enough people get there. And these are the people that you're going to have to work with every day. See, as a principal, when you hire a teacher, yeah, you got to supervise them, but you don't work with them every day. Maybe we need teachers to have a bigger voice in that. And I think that's a good idea. Jasmine also made a great point. Keeping employees in your building safe will limit the district's legal exposure and the workman's comp costs. I told you about the principal that underreported a serious assault in her building, but there was a caveat to that as well. So we had a public separate in Charlotte called Metro School. Metro is severe and profound. Well, when we built the new Metro School, we moved Morgan School, which is another public separate for violent kids. We moved them into the old Metro facility. All right, stay with me here. And we converted some rooms inside of that building into those safety rooms. When a kid's out of control, you put them in there. Well, they didn't have the right kind of doors on those rooms. And one of the BMTs, the behavior mod technicians, the kid was violent and assaulted him, but he got his arm caught in the door, and the kid used the door to injure him really badly. Well, part of the problem was a violent kid, and the principal didn't report it as a serious assault with injury, and his workman comp claim was denied. He sued the district and not only got his claim, got a lot more money too, because the principal didn't want to report it because it was persistently dangerous. And she said it might cause us to hit that threshold. Well, you report what happened, number one, but number two, we bore some responsibility in that we didn't have the proper doors on those rooms. And again, if you don't keep your facilities safe and clean, your employees can get hurt, and then you're going to pay in workman's comp claims and lawsuits. LaShonda got to sit in on a budget meeting, and she reminded the school improvement team that the budget should support the goals of the school improvement plan. Imagine that. When they want to start buying, when you're raising money, it needs to go for education. It don't need to buy stuff, just buy stuff, more things. It's supposed to support that school improvement plan, which is always academic. We get involved in buying too much stuff and not enough into the actual educating of kids. Emmy made a good point on fundraisers. You got to be very careful now. Every kid in the world's got an allergy now, berries, nuts, that kind of stuff. And you got to be careful about those things when you sell them. You understand there's liability. And also the efficacy of and the dangers of putting small kids going door to door. That's not smart either. That's a good point. Larry expounded on having teachers be involved in hiring other teachers, and that teachers look more to a cultural fit than administrators do. And that's right. That's why you need their voice. Melody reminded us that there's a lot of things that we do in school that are fundraisers that don't present as a fundraiser. And if we'll be careful and intentional, we can make a lot of money through them and not have to do more external kind of things. For example, pictures, annuals, book fairs, those kinds of things that are internal that bring parents in. You get the bonus of bringing parents in and getting them involved, and they present as fundraisers. They don't show that way, but and you don't have to do a lot of external fundraising. Now, at Christmas time, I work with different schools. We do pictures with Santa. And we make a lot of money in Title I. I worked at Cliffside this year. I've worked at Kaiser, some of the Title I schools in and around Gardner-Webb. There are no Title I schools where I live, where the big house is. They could loan me money. But out in the rural areas, there's a lot of things. So we partner with Scholastic, and they provide classroom sets of books. We do the book fair, do pictures with Santa. and we do it for the one-to-one initiative for Chromebooks, we make a lot of money. And so those are kinds of community event kind of things that you can get involved in with fundraising. Quintina pointed out, and this is a really good one, Quintina, use of facilities other than their intended purpose is a huge legal liability. She talked about using a science lab for storage. Oh, that's a bad one. Because that science room is not designed for storage. It's you got chemicals and other things that you're just storing out in the open like that. That's not smart. Well, that's a malpractice lawsuit. Because you're not supposed to do that. You intentionally did something wrong. That's a negligence lawsuit waiting to happen. Glenda in her number 15 talked about, modern life, unfortunately. Having to be very careful about releasing students to unauthorized persons. One parent's custodial, one isn't. Grandparents, people coming by to pick kids up. You got to have a system about that. You need to keep your teachers informed, share all your plans and documents, and make sure your exceptional children's teachers, a lot of them, a lot of that usually centers around an EC kid, and it could be regular ed, but you got to make sure everybody knows the rules and the process and procedures. Glenda pointed out that, as I tell you all the time, you should always have an SRO sit in on bullying harassment claims in case something illegal occurred, because as soon as there's any physical contact, it now goes from that to assault. You can't go back and get a do-over on that. Josh got to go to the district budget meeting. Josh, you want to tell us a little about that? That's a big one.
Yeah, it was each school has a chance to present their needs. So usually it's just your principal, possibly associate principal, goes to that, and they present it to the superintendent and her cabinet of leadership team. And so all the people were there, and they had to go through like bullet by bullet of, with our personnel, we don't need any different teachers next year. We do request an additional FTE for theater for high school, and then kind of got the Western support for that. And then waiting on the principal to come up with those numbers of like, well, this is how many we have requesting the course for next year, that kind of stuff. And so after personnel, then it looked at administrator personnel. So there was a request for a half-time additional administrator for our high school program, as well as a visual performing arts coordinator, which currently I'm the visual performing arts coordinator for the district, while also teaching full-time. So that would pull me out of the classroom and put me into an admin position possibly there. So I got to be there in the room while they were presenting that to the superintendent, and got to kind of, speak up on that as well, as she was my boss over instruction for the past last year, actually. And so now she's our superintendent. So I have a relationship with her already. So that was nice to do that. But
yes,
looked at facility improvements, safety stuff, just, bullet by bullet on within one spreadsheet about all of the requests that they have.
yeah. And so the takeaways are, they look at everything line by line. And the corollary to that is, you better know it line by line. You better know everything about your building in terms of the finances, teachers, allotments, money, funding sources, codes. And now they don't go in and say, well, I'll go look that up. Or when they ask you, you better know that stuff. That's my takeaway, is when you go to those meetings, you better not come in carrying a stack of stuff that you're going to have to try to thumb through. They want to know right now. And if you don't know it off the top of your head, it's not important to them. You got to be able to go in and the thing about it is, they may ask you something completely unrelated to, but you better know the answer. If it's financial, when you go to those meetings, they expect you to know every penny that comes in and out of your building. That might be unreasonable, but that's the expectation.
One of my thoughts as I saw my principal flipping through papers was, all right, well, when I have the opportunity to do this, I'm going to have everything already in that spreadsheet on that row. I'm going to have all my numbers already over to the far right, whatever, just so I've got everything in the same place. Super easy to do, either that or at least have links embedded into that spreadsheet so I can go immediately to it. So I'm on the same spreadsheet they're looking at. I'm clicking on it as they're clicking on it. I can see exactly all. So I have all my stuff together and ducks in a row before I walk into it. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a oversimplification of what we're talking about, but I pulled this up just so I would have it to show you folks. Let me share my screen. It's not a financial spreadsheet, but this is what we're talking about here. When you've got an Excel spreadsheet, you need to use the sheets function, the tabs down here at the bottom. And so when I go into a budget meeting at Gardner Webb, it's not so much about, it is about the individual dollars, let me be clear, but they want to know how many are in what program. They want to know where they are. And so what I do is I have a sheet with everybody, alphabetical. I have that, let's see, right here it is, of every program, where they are. Then I sort them out by program, and then within the programs, I'll sort them out by year. And so I over here on, you can't see it, but over on the far side, I have some totals to look at and some cohort data. And then when I do master schedules, I show at least 3 semesters. The previous one, I show the flow across. And so when I go in and they ask me questions about who do we need to hire, how many classes we need to have, those kinds of things, it goes like that. That's if you'll get better results if you're planned and prepared, is the idea. And that's why you got to know every line, because you're going to get called to those meetings. And if you're sitting thumbing through stuff, it doesn't present that you're on top of things. We don't have confidence that if we give you this money, that you're going, it's probably 2 different things, but I mean, I'm just telling you how the world works. I hate that, but that's just how the world works. Larry made a good point back to keeping teachers off workman comp is, keep them from breaking up fights. And that's a gray area in that if one kid is hurting the other one, you have a responsibility to stop that. But if you got teachers out breaking up fights, you need to figure out why you're having fights. But that's true. Teachers breaking up fights. The worst whipping I ever had when I was a beginning teacher, 2 9th grade girls beat me like a rented mule. All the experienced older guys just stood around and watched them. Said, we're just gonna let them fight till they just, wear themselves out. Now, I jumped right in. They beat me. I had knuckle bumps all over me. I learned real quick. You get hurt up by them girls. Alicia made a good point. I like the point that she made and this goes for a lot of things federal. When we think about getting federal money for EC or CTE, we think about it just being a lump of money. And one of the things that you understand about federal money, it comes in very specific line items, even more detailed than state or local money does. And it very much specifically spells out what it can be spent for. And so you can't just say, well, this is my CTE money this year. If you're middle or high school and got career and technical education, or if you're elementary and got Title I, it tells you what part can be spent on salaries, how much can be spent on parent events, right down the line. And so that's what we call micro accounting. You've got to do the macro. Yeah, this is my Title I money, but you can't just make the mistake of saying, we got this much money, we can spend it anywhere we want to. No, the feds I told you, the feds is the tightest money. That's why you always got to start with them. They have the most restrictions and the most rules about how their money is spent, whether it's Title I, whether it's EC, whether it's AIG, whether it's CTE, whether it's Title I, whatever federal money, it has subcategories. They have micro budgets inside. You got to make sure you know what those are. Brandon made a good point. Fundraising must conform to all the laws of the school and privacy laws. Sometimes, we don't want to, we make sure that we don't violate anybody's FERPA by giving information about in fundraising, like, oh, contact these parents or the parents of these children. People, the fundraisers say, give me a list and we're going to do a solicitation. You got to be careful about giving out people's personal information for fundraising solicitation, because guess what those fundraising companies do? After they solicit your parents, they sell those to other marketers. They most certainly do. So you got to be careful about giving out information for any kind of electronic solicitation of funds. If you want to see a really good Title IX process for South Carolina, Alicia uploaded a really good one from Bamberg schools. It was a really, really good one. You could read that one. Melody reminded us again in her kind of summary that budget must be spent to educate kids. We can't ever forget that. That's a good reminder for them all. And Alicia, to kind of wrap up, reminded us that our job is to keep kids safe, physically, emotionally, educationally. Our job is to keep kids safe. We're supposed to be a champion for kids. The champion for kids. So that's the things that I read over the last couple of weeks. Again, I enjoy reading your work. I learn probably more than y'all do. Since I'm not out in the schools every day, you're my link to them. I'm in schools about once a week, once every other week. I try to make a point to be in a school somewhere, try to not lose contact with them. Usually through interns or my doctoral students. I get to go and visit schools, but you can't ever forget schools are there to educate kids, and they're for kids. And you can't lose that perspective. All right. Who's got a case study for us tonight? I'm excited about that. Melody, your group gets to go. I don't know why. You were center of my screen, I guess.
Yay! I won the lottery. All right, I think Josh is going to start us with an overview, but this is Team 7.
My team is about to go, but I'm sorry.
You're fine. It consists of myself, Tamala, Kizzy, and Joshua.
All right.
All right, yeah, so we'll start with just a case for overview. Just looking at some of that important information, just a quick summary. And in case study 4, inclusive education success for all or success for some, Eugenia, the principal of the school, receives a complaint from from the third grade parents delegate who requests a meeting regarding parent concerns about the lack of attention they felt that their children are receiving in that class. In their opinion, the teacher in that third grade class was disregarding the needs of their children because she was overly concerned with the special needs students who had been placed in the class as a part of the school's integration program.
Okay, the first question was how might the principal approach this and future meetings with her teachers? And is it necessary to choose one approach over another? And my thoughts on this as you begin, the first thing she should do is, yes, entertain meeting with the parent representative to listen to their concerns, but also make it known to that representative that you can speak of their children, but no one else's. If they have concerns, no specifics will be shared with them concerning other children. And then we also said we could meet with the teacher to discuss concerns and have the teacher share their thoughts and viewpoint of the concerns from the parent representative. And then just discuss if they're going to have an inclusion program, the meaning of inclusion with the teachers and how it should be carried out in the classroom. And if the teacher does not have a good understanding or grasp of what that should look like, she should provide the proper training to the teachers so they will understand how it needs to be implemented in the classroom. And also, it's important for the principal to provide walkthroughs for the teachers and just to understand the classroom dynamics and what is happening, and just to help with student engagement, classroom management, and understanding those parts of the classrooms and what's taking place in the classrooms. And then the next question was, what is the path that Eugenia should take? And my thought process here is just discuss and review all of the laws regarding students with special needs. Discuss that with teachers and staff that all children have a right to free and appropriate education. Discuss with them the Individuals with Disabilities Act, which is federal law, that aids schools in providing equal access for children with disabilities, and discuss with the teachers and staff least restrictive environment for special education students, and just kind of make sure that the teachers and staff have a good understanding of what all of those laws mean and why special education students are in a least restrictive environment. And then also review the master schedule and classroom rosters just to see the percentage of special needs kids in the classroom and make sure that it's all proportionate out and not all within one classroom. And also, again, complete those walkthroughs just to be aware of what's happening in the classrooms and just to get a good understanding and feel of what the engagement and the classroom instruction is providing for the students.
Right. Is one point of view more correct than the other, and why? No, all point of views are relevant and should be heard by Eugenia, which is the principal. Eugenia should explain that regular education teachers have a responsibility to all student populations, not just one group. PARC versus Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 1971 required the state to evaluate and place all students with mental disabilities ages 6 through 21 in a proper publicly funded education setting. The schools should hold a curriculum night to explain to parents how students will be served in the classroom with differentiated instruction. All student groups should be addressed to include academically gifted, special education, etc. Eugenia should meet with Ishmael. Is Ishmael? Am I pronouncing his name right? And discuss ways to support teachers with differentiated instruction by looking at data to guide instruction, as well as provide strategies to address all student groups. It says, what kind of collaboration from the children's families might the principal and the teachers propose in order to improve the inclusion education program, encouraging and appreciation for diversity and stimulate learning for all students at the school? Hold a curriculum night, Title I night. I know we do that at my school at JMA. We're at IB school as well. So explaining the different student groups served and how the curriculum supports each group throughout differentiated instruction. Build communication with the parents through teachers, school web pages, classroom, remind apps, Parent Square, weekly and monthly news letters to provide information concerning events and opportunities for parents to volunteer in the classroom, field trips, or other school events. Okay, as an expert in the area of learning and evaluation, what might Ismael, the technical coordinator, do to integrate and create some harmony out of the differences of opinions among the teachers? I said hold PLCs to discuss and give training on inclusion and mainstreaming with teachers, which I find very important to do, because not all teachers are aware of how things are ran when you have inclusion and mainstreaming in classrooms. Review curriculum and standards to help teachers understand that their grade level standards and how to implement and plan differentiated lessons to meet all student groups. Another important point. And provide strategies on how to meet the needs of all students, not just special ed students or the high flyers, AIG students. And provide support to teachers with walkthroughs. Meaning, like, maybe provide them with some feedback after your walkthrough. What actions might Sylvia take with the families of children in question in order to learn and share the achievements and experiences they have observed among the children? She can provide a concrete way to communicate with parents, such as the Remind app, to share concerns, highlight successes, and provide opportunities for parent involvement. Share the importance of cooperative groups in her classroom to encourage student engagement, and communicate to parents that differentiated learning opportunities are utilized to target students of all ability levels to meet their individual needs.
And so that takes us into kind of our final thoughts or our wrap up. I kind of allow all the ladies had amazing meat within all of that. So just going to give a quick recap about that. The school principal was not fulfilling her responsibilities as an administrator and was unaware of what was happening in classrooms in her school. And so looking at where she is right now, what she should do, she should take the meeting with the parent representative, but make it clear she would only discuss their child and no other students. Work with teachers and Ismail to better support all student groups, not just special education students. Provide training as needed for teachers to better understand how to provide inclusion services. Review the master schedule and classroom rosters for the number of students in each classroom and the specific students in each classroom. And then review student data to address classroom concerns and provide strategies for all student groups.
All right. Go back to your first slide. Give me 1 minute. I'll be right back with you. I've got to.
That was as quiet as he's ever been. Just saying. I was kind of worried now. Anybody else worried? Liz, you worried over there too?
Yeah, it's a little it's different. Melody, what'd you do?
Well, I'm glad you guys went first now.
But he saved,
Maybe, that's right.
he saved his feedback for y'all this time, though. So.
What did you say?
I
Can I
was
need
like-
you guys to do it again?
I was like, say something, say
Okay,
something, say
so
something.
go to your next slide. All right, little quiz here. Next slide. All right. So when those parents came in, they were regular ed parents. What legal grounds did they have to come in and complain about the basic education that their children were getting? Now, I included this link in our Zoom session for tonight. They're there based on is every child guaranteed a basic education, right? That spells it out. So do they have standing? Absolutely. See, I've had folks argue, well, you know, the EC kids, they have their right. Well, yeah, they do have their rights. Faith is there, and y'all pointed that out. But we have to remember, the regular kids have the basic education rights as well. So when you say, is one point of view more valid than, no. The regular ed kids are guaranteed a basic education. The EC kids are guaranteed a free and appropriate faith. But one is not a hierarchical structure. One does not say, well, this one comes first. You have to do them both. And that's when it asks you is one point of view, and y'all got the answer to that question correct. No, one is not one more important than the other. We have to do both. And so when people say, but we've got faith behind us, the EC parents will come in yelling and screaming faith. Well, you just simply say, here's what the regular ed kids have. They get a basic education. So we can't just do everything for your kid and forget about everybody else's. That's when you don't talk about specific kids, but you can say, these kids are owed this. Your kids are owed that. But now that doesn't mean that we give you this at the expense of those kids over there. That's what you have to say to parents. They don't want to hear that, but that's the law. We have to be concerned about the basic ed of every kid. Now, next question. And y'all answer this one too, but I'm going to ask you directly. Do we let teachers figure out how they want to do the inclusion program? Or do we make sure that they follow the district mandate and model?
And follow the mandate.
There you go.
Mm.
That's one of them when you talk to your teachers about we've made this change in our delivery model. This is not optional. This is do it now, do it this way. Some things we have some discretion that we can do. Other things we can't. This is a federal program. We have no discretion on this one. And you have to be very clear with your teachers, folks. This is not optional. This is not for us to figure out. We have a plan that our district has adopted, and we have to do that. I love the idea of the PLCs. That goes back to your first evidence. You can't just do a general professional development where you cover inclusion model for an hour at the opening required workday, and then we never hear from it again. You got to follow up and do that small group work that you got whole group, small group, one-on-one. And that's what the role of the instructional facilitator would be, is if they're not getting it, if you did the whole group and you're doing the PLC small group with them and they're still not getting, what is the role and it's most specifically is to do that one-on-one with those people if they're not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do professional development. You start at whole group. You got to move that into your PLCs to make sure that you're actually clinically getting it out there into the workflow every day. And those who were lagging behind and not doing well, that's where the one-on-one comes in. We can't do one-on-one with everybody. Everybody doesn't need it, but the ones who aren't doing it. So that's the delivery model. But yes, the PLCs is how we actually take what we learn in that whole group and apply it in a clinical setting. That's how that professional growth plan works that you worked on last semester. It's not just we'll do one or the other. No, you got to have the content, the whole group. This is what we want you to do. And then in the PLCs, we show them how we want it done. And if they're not doing it, we work with them in the one-on-one. So you got to have all three. Is it cooperative ed when we have the AIG kids teaching the EC kids? Is that really cooperative education? Of course not. We're also violating the IEPs of the AIG kids. We're warehousing them because all they're doing is remediation. They're never growing. They're never learning. That's just a bad practice. That's just malpractice. Master schedule. Again, we start with our federal programs. Remember that? And we don't put them all in one class. What generally happens is we start with something else. Like all the band kids have to be in the same room. Well, no EC kids in there. So that means all the other kids, because we got the band kids in one room, all the EC kids have to go in the other. No, we start with the federal programs first. We don't start with band first, or we don't in high schools. We start with chemistry and physics because they have the least. No, we start with the federal programs first always. And if you do that and you're intentional about it, you don't end up with all the EC kids, whether intentionally or unintentionally. That's one of the things you learn about master scheduling. There's unintended consequences of the choices you make. You didn't mean to put all the EC kids in the same room, but if you schedule band first, or one of the higher level IB or AP classes first, there's no EC kids in that group. So guess what? They all get put together. Well, I didn't mean to, or that wasn't intentional. It doesn't matter if it was intentional or not. It happened. Well, I don't know how to avoid. I know how to avoid it. Schedule your EC first. Federal programs come first. That's how you avoid it. So that you don't have them all in one room. When we do the push-in inclusion model does not work if all the EC kids are in the same room. We might as well have done the pull-out. It does not work. And then my last point, and y'all hit this too. Why in the world would you send, if you don't know what's going on in your rooms, and then when you get a complaint, instead of going and looking, you send the instructional facilitator? Oh my God, how lazy could you be? How detached from instruction could you be? That tells me all I need to know about you as a principal. You don't understand what's important in your building. We teach kids. That's what we do. My analogy on that one is, and I've told you this one before, when you go to Raleigh and you go around the loop and you head, 40 turns south and heads toward Wilmington, there in Raleigh, out around the Beltline, First exit after you make around the loop is Jones Sausage Road, goes to Garner. You know what they do at Jones Sausage? They make sausage. You know what we do in schools? We teach kids. That's our core competency. If you're not out in the rooms making sure that happens, then you don't know what business you're in. You're not in charge of that building. And so I hope that you could see that everything we've touched on in all four of your evidences, and I love now you had them backwards. I'll be a little bit picky. You had your short-term goal second and your long-term goal first. Your short-term goal was that communication piece that Kizzy went over. And then the long-term is the actual Title I parent night kind of thing. Make sure you do make sure you got the communication going and then schedule it so you won't be sitting there looking at one another without any parents at your building. That's the whole notion of the communication plan. Communication plan is not the end all be all. It's the ways and means that when we have those parent meetings, somebody actually shows up. That's the thing. Kizzy's at J.M. Alexander in Huntersville, North Carolina. 13 years ago, they integrated the IB program from Davidson into their building. And so they run the gamut from IB kids to not IB kids at the other end. And it's a bear to schedule a school like that, but you got to do it to meet the needs of all the kids in the building. That's why the master schedule is the heart of your school. Remember, it's the cornerstone that and your budget support that school improvement plan. It's that one of that cornerstone.
We're Title I this school year, and it's been hectic. We have a different set of kids now. We used to have like the inclusion students, the special education students. Now we have SBS, and they have a different type of. I don't want to say. I don't know how to word it. They're different. They have more behavior issues, and our principals are not really trained or equipped to handle it. And it shows because they're running the school. They're running the school. And then, the IB stuff, it's overwhelming for a lot of new teachers, especially if you've never been at an IB school. This is my third year at the IB school, but we, they slowly introduce new things every year. And they tell us, take the summer trainings while they're paid for. People still won't take the summer trainings. And during the school year, they wait to the last minute to take it, and then they're overwhelmed because they
IB's not easy. It's just not easy.
It's not
easy. My wife taught at Davidson IB the 15 years that it was open before it was integrated into J.M. Alexander. My wife was the social studies lead there and for the county for the new, and she worked 12 months. She did curriculum as well. But IB is another world. And there's so much to know and so much to learn. You've got that at one end and you've got your SBC kids at the other, but you've got to be, and the point is you've got to meet the needs of every kid. And there's laws behind, the middle kid, the basic ed, the IB. You can't differentiate IB. The curriculum is set. You got to learn it. On the other end, you got to do total differentiation for the SB. But all that's got to work together seamlessly. So that's why that master schedule is so important. Is how do you put this together? And teachers have to be delivering as intended with fidelity what they're supposed to be doing. And you got to go check and make sure that they're doing it. If not, you've got to do the professional development to get them to do what they're supposed to be doing. Because you're going to be held accountable for that. You're going to get sued if you don't. Again, everything that you've learned over the last 2 semesters, and most specifically this semester, kind of goes into this case study. It's not as easy as it looks like it would be. There's a lot of different things pulling at you as a principal, but you have to establish that instruction is your priority. And that you grow the teachers that you have into the ones that you need to have. But there's some things that you can do. That master schedule and that school improvement plan, that budget, they work together. The budget and the master schedule support those academic initiatives of that school improvement plan. And if you don't do it that way, you lose your way, and it doesn't turn out well for you. All right, excellent presentation. I'm impressed with what you're learning. Y'all must be getting it from the book. I know you're not learning anything from me, but I'm just, doesn't matter how you get it, just that you get it. It's all I care about. I just want you to have, I want you to know these things. It's important stuff. All right, next group.
Okay, Dr. Lamb, we are ready.
All right. I told you I'm married to a Tina.
She awesome.
She is. You remind me of her.
Okay, while Liz is pulling up our presentation, Caroline had an emergency with her TA,
Yep.
so she is unable to be here with us tonight, but she has put in her work with our case study.
Great.
Okay, so, and we welcome Caroline to our group and our team, for she has been a great contribution this far. Of course, it's Caroline, Jasmine, myself, Quintina, and Miss Liz. Question 1, how might the principal approach this and future meetings with her teachers? Is it necessary to choose one approach over the other? Eugenia presented the concern as a parent complaint rather than a reflection on the legal programming requirement for all students. Eugenia should have already had multiple walkthroughs and observation in the 3A and 3B classrooms. Eugenia should have led the data drive during the year to inform instructional decision-making for all students across the grade level and classroom. Reference this when meeting a teacher. And she should have also have invited Sylvia to reflect on the needs of the current inclusion program model.
So I'm piggybacking a little bit off of that with question 2. What is the path that she should take? And so we said she should make sure she respects the due process laws that are in response to that PTA president meeting. We got that from chapter 8. That is all about special education and its services from our course text. Be sure to follow FERPA law and refuse to discuss students, other students with other than that parent's own child. It's just a no-no and we don't do it. Revert all questions and concerns back to that parent's individual student and how best to grow that child. Ensure basic education program law, which requires that a core curriculum for all students takes place in an account for special education children. If the peer learning teaching situation was occurring, we know that that's not the setup that needs to happen, and that's not what inclusion is for.
Exactly.
Verify that IEP service times are being met by a highly qualified EC teacher. She needs to just make sure that they're handling the exceptional program correctly. If it's pull-out services, push-in services, whatever the services are, they need to be done with fidelity and consistency, and it should be monitored, and we should know. There should be no confusion as to when children are receiving services, how they are receiving services, and what those services look like. And then that goes into IDA, making sure she needs to know her laws and skills. The first team said this very well, but she just needs to be knowledgeable of all the components around the special education, and the course text definitely said that as well. Principals don't need to be, this is the quote for me, but principals don't need to be special education experts, but they should serve to be special education advocates. And so she's got to know they do need to be knowledgeable as well. And then become more familiar with the scheduling of the EC students and the exceptional programming needs of all the students in 3B. And then the last suggestion was to form an instructional leadership team to collaborate, analyze data, consider the needs of the special students across the grade levels and the schools. And so that goes back along with the work that we've done with our APSL, and knowing how to analyze data and plan for students correctly. So we pick those things for her to be able to do.
So if we're reflecting on whether one point of view from the teachers or the parents or the principal was correct or not, we as a team agreed that no one's viewpoint really matters except the legal one. And we reference FERPA that Eugenia needs to follow the protection laws when she's speaking to parents about other children. Again, the basic education program law that the course requirements for students to receive core curriculum for all students, even if they have an IEP, or if there are other students in the room that have an IEP, everyone needs core instruction. Eugenia, unfortunately, has not proven that she is knowledgeable of the classroom instruction that's going on, and she needs to have some walkthrough data that she can reference and not rely on just the team that she's asking to go in after the fact. Also, Eugenia is addressing the teacher with the parent concern rather than gathering her own information. And as a principal, that's not strong leadership, relying on one person's complaint rather than having knowledge of the situation first. And it doesn't build relationships with the staff, which can further lead to a lack of attrition and continuing a trusting staff on your at your school.
Agreed. When we moved on to question 4, we started to really, for the rest of the questions, really look at some of the different projects that we've done for the course. And this one directly kind of relates to the skip. So what kind of collaboration from the children's families might the principal and the teachers propose in order to improve inclusion? The inclusion education model encourage and appreciate for diversity and stimulate learning for all those at the school. And so I just said, the skip basically taught us that strong parental involvement and community involvement allows for transparent discussions about student goals and development, which is what we want. And we've learned that through all of these processes, it's been extremely helpful having a collaborative PLC model that allows for all voices to be heard, and planning based on teacher working conditions survey data, parental involvement survey data, that allows for an analysis of the strengths and weaknesses with the communication and the events. So like Dr. Lamb said, our short-term goals is to, of course, to make sure that you have strong communication going on, address those avenues of communication, and then you put into place the events that you would like to see that communication play out and how that works. And so we would say also to encourage better communication. We want families, they should encourage better communication about skills, concepts, what parents can do to help closing these learning gaps, and practicing, of course, skills at home, strengthen the family connections with concepts, the familiarity, with concepts. Parents should make sure they're attending all these IEP meetings and conferences, because this is where you're going to get your information and your data, and this is where you're going to have those conversations pertaining to your child's education, and you can be very specific about what you hope to see and what you need to see in the classroom, and teachers can explain more in depth about what's happening in relation to their own student. Encourage families to suggest and attend these special curriculum events, and such as open houses, curriculum nights, test prep, study skill nights, and then again, with the communication, making sure that progress reports are home and not just sent, but seen. That communication needs to be twofold: graded work, newsletters about the classroom, all of these ways, things that we've discussed through the skip apply to this question.
All right, so in terms of the technical coordinator, Ismail, and the support that she or he may be able to provide to the school, the first thing we thought of is that there's a potential to lead others in the school. So if we connect it to the learning of the APSL, looking at the data from the student learning and identifying the greatest need, and then researching best practices to develop an action plan to support the instruction of the students at that school. If it's a certain population, like the EC children are not learning, or if it's the gifted children that are not learning, or if it's something across the grade level, using data to develop a plan and then monitoring the progress. We also connected it to the learning from the APTEL, looking at forming a PLC to evaluate the strengths and the needs of teacher leadership and empowerment. It sounds like there are a lot of caring teachers that are invested in the school and the students, but getting them to work towards a shared goal would be ideal. And Ismail may be somebody who could lead a team, an instructional leadership team, to work towards that. And then lastly, if we connect it to the work in the OMA to look at the organizational management of the school, how your federal and local programming needs of the students, making sure that the money that is spent from federal funds is spent legally, developing a master schedule and looking at an action plan to make sure that the needs of the students are met and followed upon with short-term and long-term goals that are measurable.
And then we went to our skip, which was what might Sylvia take with the families of the children in question to learn and share the achievement and experience they have observed among the children. Sylvia should have addressed the principal first to discuss the effectiveness of her teaching approach, not saying that it was right or if it was wrong, but without any walkthrough, she didn't have any observation to determine what she needed to work on. Sylvia should advise the principal about the importance of being an advocate for all students, regardless of their disabilities. Sylvia needs to inform the principal about accommodation, which was not, I didn't see what accommodation was addressed for the kids in the case study, but it wasn't noticed in the case study. Then she should discuss the due process, which addressed procedures and placement to resolve disputes between parents and school authorities. And then notifying the principal, because evidently she didn't know the least restricted environment, which means students with disabilities should have the opportunity to be educated with non-disabled peers, with their non-disabled peers.
All right. Could there be accommodations where a kid is taught by another kid? Could that be in the IEP?
No.
No. No. No. We know that, but we don't know what was in it, but we know that couldn't have been in it. So that's the thing. We sometimes it's know what you can't do. It's as important as knowing what you can do or should do. My question, kind of an overarching question here, and maybe I'm wrong in this, but in my experiences, and why is it that we're so hesitant to do one-on-one with teachers to improve their practice?
I think it's the timing. I think and I'm gonna say this from experience with my
Nobody wants to be honest.
Yeah, and currently with the principal that I have now, she wants to do everything. And there's no way you can run a school when you're doing everything. That's why you have assistant principal, instructional coach, behavior intervention, but she wants to control the whole environment. So you're lacking doing observation. And that was one thing that one of my coworkers, she had a problem with. She said, well, McKnight, we are having a PLC meeting today, and I'm cannot wait for this PLC meeting, which would have been held today. And I'm waiting for her to address her concerns with us doing, we have to do that end of the year observation. You didn't do an observation. Where did you do the observation? And we signed off on it. And one teacher that she's giving a hard time said, I'm not signing it because you did not observe my class. But you want me to go back through a whole adept program, but you did not do any, and this is an English class, but you're doing everything. And Dr. Lamb, I have called you on many on your personal cell phone. So it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is we got to know what's important in our buildings. Yeah. And micromanagers don't know what's important. They think everything's important because it's not that, I don't think that they think everything's important. They think everything's important for them to be in control of. Yeah. And you have to know what you can delegate, what you can give up. And you can't do everything. You need to be doing those teacher observations. You need to be, because that's part of that one-on-one. That's what I'm talking about. Why would we do everything in the world except we don't want to talk to people one-on-one? We don't want to sit down and tell people specifically or work with people one-on-one. We try to send them to workshops, or we try to send them to this group activity or this training or whatever. And until you can sit down and tell people, you know, this is what's good and this is what's not good, and not fall back on the old sandwich method. I hate the sandwich method. You know what the sandwich method is, don't you? You call somebody in for an evaluation of their performance and you tell them 17 good things. You slip one little thing in that's bad, and then you tell them 17 more things. Now, you told them 35 things. Do you think they remember the one thing that you really needed for them to work on? Of course not. You sandwiched it in between all this other stuff. What you need to do is when you bring them in, you say, this is the thing we're here to talk about today that you're not doing well. I acknowledge that you do a lot of other things really well, but we're most specific about this is the one thing that we need to work on. That's that one-on-one, whether it's one-on-one coaching or whether it's that post-evaluation conference. It's that one-on-one, me looking at you and saying, this is not where it needs to be. Doesn't mean you aren't a good person. It doesn't mean that you can't do this. It means that you're not doing this one thing that we need for you to work on. And we're going to get you help to that. And we're going to work most specifically with you. We're not just going to send you to some generic workshop where you sit in a room and somebody talks for all day. We're going to work most specifically with you one-on-one on this one thing. It sounds very simple, but in practice, people are loath to do that. You know, I've got a doctoral student, Josh, I'm going to get to you. Let me get a quick story. I've got a doctoral student. Her name's Katie Barber. Her maiden name was McSwain. Her mother had children. I worked with her husband. He was principal in the district where I was principal. My first principal job in Rutherford County. Worked with her father. But her mother came back after she had children back into the workforce and was a school counselor. And this was her first year. Now, she wasn't, again, she was, I don't know, she'd be young to me now, but I don't know, she was 30-ish, 30s. And had two children who gotten up school age, and so she rejoined the workforce. And she came to me and said, she was a counselor there in the middle school, and said, we've got a problem with one of the students here. He's not bathing, and the other kids are complaining. I said, I don't know what to do. I said, just bring him down here to me. She said, can I come? I want to sit in on this. I want to take notes on what you do with him. So they came in. I was busy at my desk. It was a class change. She brought him in. I just reached down on my desk and grabbed a towel with a bar of soap in it and threw it to him and said, here, hit the showers. That was the end of that. That's probably not textbook. But you just got to tell people. And she looked at me and I was like, it's just that simple. This is not hard. You know, we didn't need to get into why he smelled bad or how bad he smelled or what he smelled like or any of that stuff. You know, I'm just interested in the outcome here. And if you're one of those control freaks, that's got to have their finger into everything, you either ignore things or you make too much out of things that don't matter. Something like that, just you know, just be honest with people, get it over with and move on. Here's the solution. You know, we can fix this problem.
I think you nailed that. The last part is the solution. I think that slows people. There is sometimes they don't necessarily, and I don't want to speak ill of any of my administrators, but they don't necessarily have a solution for some of the problems that they see. And so therefore those conversations become very difficult to have.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, if you're going to bring somebody in for performance issues, you need to have a solution. Just talking about you're not doing this, that, or the other, that's of no value. They probably already knew that. Not too many people get up every morning and goes and say, well, I think I'll go to work and be incompetent today. Most people want to do, you know, the best they can. They just don't know how. Your job is to find the how. That's your job as an administrator, not to point out that you're lacking in these areas. Okay, well, tell me what to do. Well, I don't know that. You're just, you know, you're lacking in these. That's what micromanagers do. They're big on problems, not too many on solutions, though. They want
Listen,
to be in control of everything, but they don't ever have any answers.
I want to say that this was about a few weeks ago. My administrator brought me in, and she had a meeting because I think I called you, Dr. Lamb, on this situation, and she gave me a referral. Well, I don't even know if it was a referral or what. It was a letter, and it was about having HR conversations, and it was brought to her attention, the letter states, it was brought to her attention from other staff members that Quintina McKnight, has been having HR conversation in regards to a person that was going through investigation, which the person was my mentee. Never had this conversation, never spoke to anyone about it. I don't even know where it came from. And she was like, and on the second page, it was like, you don't have to agree with it, but you're signing it saying you understand what's in the content of it. And I'm looking at her and I said, do you really think I'm going to sign this? I'm not signing that. Refused to sign it. We stayed in the meeting for an extra 2 hours just talking. Then 3 days later, she came back to me and asked me for the letter. You think I have that letter sitting on my desk at school waiting to give it back to you? No, I kept it in my file. So in case I have to come back or reflect on what you come at me with, this is what I'm keeping. I'm not giving you that letter back. Why would you want to take it back when you gave it to me?
Bad practice, just bad practice. These are folks who are more interested in being in charge than educating kids and finding solutions and running effective schools. This is just an ego exercise. Now, the problem with the principalship, it does attract a lot of narcissists. Ego drive is very important in being an effective principal, but if you take it too far into the narcissism, that's when you become a micromanager. People say, what's the first symptom of narcissism? Being a micromanager. You want to be in control of everything. That's textbook. It's absolutely textbook. We studied this in doctoral, but it's textbook. Josh, you had something you wanted to contribute? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just going to say that, like, within what I've seen a lot are administrators who want to have the approval of all their staff at all times. And like, really, and so I've seen that a lot being the reason why a combination of that and not being good teachers themselves when they were in the classroom and not having those skills to be able to say, hey, here's what you need to do to be able to what I'm seeing right here. And so that combination of the two. And then you said something about my administrator actually asked me to go down and talk to a high school student in dance class and let them know. So they like, oh yeah, you go handle that. Sure, I will. Took them deodorant, make sure they knew that before and after class, they need to make sure to apply again and make sure they were good to go. So it's like several different things all in one. So nothing specific within that.
But I think you've hit upon something there is a lot of administrators don't do one-on-one because they don't know. I sat in on a lesson today. When we have employees, potential applicants come to the university, they have to do demonstration lessons. And I was invited to watch a demonstration lesson today to give my thoughts, my feedback on their teaching. And I said, well, I've seen worse. I don't remember when, but I've seen worse. And they said, but what do you mean? I said, well, teaching is simple and complex. It's simple in that it follows it's driven by assessment. And it's complex in that you got to be able to assess accurately what's going on with your students. And so when I see these demonstration lessons and they set it up with, we covered this yesterday and they've got this, and wait a minute. How do you know that? You've already started out from the premise. We need to start out with a review of what you saw, or if you missed something. I mean, I do stars of the week. I'm not telling you I'm a wonderful teacher. That's far from it. But the idea here is I've read everything you've done and I've assessed it. Not just from you, what I really like to see, but I assess myself. What did I miss? If I see that y'all have missed, that 2 or 3 of you have missed the same thing, that's on me. Assessment drives instruction. It's real simple, but you got to know what instruction is, and you got to know what good instruction is and isn't if you're going to try to help somebody else. And so I think you're exactly right. One of the reasons why principals don't do those critical conversations, those one-on-ones, they don't know themselves. They either did it or didn't do it or did it poorly. And they can't tell. All they know is it's not working. Well, we could just get somebody off the street that knows it's not working. Just look at the outcomes. The question is
the
why
students can
is it
tell you
not
it's not
working?
working. The students
Yeah.
can tell you it's not
They
working.
can tell you that.
Right.
The kids can tell you it's not working. The trick is why is it not working and what can we do to fix it? Just pointing out it's not working is of no value either. That's actually harmful. But I think one of the reasons why principals don't have those critical conversations, they want everybody to like them. And you don't have to be as abrupt as I am. Remember, I'm old. I have the grace of being old. And so I can be a little more direct. At a certain time in life, you kind of drop the pretense and you just have conversations with people and you just be direct. Why can't we do that when we're younger?
We came to the conclusion that our principal got the mindset of divide and conquer.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Keep everybody. We had an interim superintendent in Charlotte who that was his actual leadership style and admitted that was his leadership style.
Yeah,
is that he wanted everybody, and if everybody was fighting among themselves, they couldn't fight him.
Yep. And that's her intake.
And he said, I want everybody to be stressed. He said, you get better production out of people who are stressed, and they're not worried about trying to overthrow you if they're stressed all the time and trying to get done what you have them to do. If you work them, you stress them, then they won't come back at you. Now, full disclosure, one of my best friends in the world, he was superintendent in a small northwestern district for 11 years. He was superintendent for 11 years. You know how he hung on for 11 years in a place that he wasn't from? He moved every principal to a new school every year and kept them fighting among themselves so that they couldn't rise up against him. Now, he's one of my best friends in the world, but now that's complete malpractice. But that's what he did to principals and kept teachers in line that way, because teachers could never relax because they had a new principal every year with different expectations. The principals were fighting one another, to get the better jobs every year, and everybody was fighting everybody else. And he just kind of sat there and giggled and was above it and stayed until he wanted to leave. And that was his plan. Now, it didn't make the district any better, but it kept him out of the fray all the time because everybody else was fighting everybody else all the time. Divide and conquer. He did that. For 11 years, he moved every principal in that district every year.
Wow. We started a new program this year, and the English teacher, which is my dearest friend, she started teaching about 4 years. Excellent. And I told her an older lady, and I said she missed her calling because that was her calling. Mm-hmm. Love what she does. Don't have any biological kids of her own, but she loved the kids wholeheartedly. And I have to listen to her every day when she reviewed how her day went. Nevertheless, she said, McKnight, I'm having this issue and my concern is X, Y, and Z. Okay, so she sat down and she had a meeting with our principal. And it's funny to me because she was like, you don't know how much I put in my day, my nights, my evenings, just working on lessons, preparing the kids. And you all want me to change this whole curriculum based on what they brought us from this district office. And she was fighting this program that they brought in. Well, the program that they brought in, she knew it wasn't going to work because before she teach any student any information, she has to do her own research behind it. And the principal was totally against what she was saying. Like, well, this is what they give us. This is what you got to use. And I'm not even going to call the program out, but we are going to use this program. Nevertheless, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent came in and was like, you was absolutely right. They paid for a the program, but did not know that it was not made for middle school students. It was made for elementary students. And she was telling them that the whole time. And she was like, this is not going to work. But instead of the principal fighting with her, she was fighting against her and saying, you know, you're going to use it because they say we're going to use it. No, it's not going to work for my kids. But I commend her every day. I said, please don't quit. And every day she said, it's not paying me enough to stay here. It's not. But you don't do it for the money.
Don't do it for the money. No, no. But in the end, we pay for results to make a good number go up or a bad number go down. Our job is to educate kids. If the people that we have are not the ones we need, it's our job to help them become the ones that they need. And you cannot do that if you can't have critical conversations with people and you can't give them solutions. Just pointing out their shortcomings that just makes things worse. If I told you, you know, we go back to the kid that needed to shower, you know, I didn't have to go into great detail that he stunk or any of that. Here's the solution. Let's just move on. I never had another minute's trouble out of that kid. Everything went well, you know, but that was a lesson in your job is to find solutions, not just to point out the problems. There's plenty of people that'll do that for you. The kids will do that. Your job is to find solutions. And if you weren't good enough instructionally, then you need to get better instructionally. You need to bear down. You need to be in the rooms more. If you don't know what's going on, you need to be in the rooms more. That's the thing about it is that's our point of contact. That's where the real work of schools occurs, is in that classroom with the teachers and kids. And if you don't know how to help teachers get better, you need to go watch the good ones. You need to go watch the good ones, and see what they do. You know, I was a young coach, high school. Best coach we had was basketball coach. I was a baseball coach, baseball and football, but I was head baseball coach. I went and watched the basketball coach because he was a good one. He knew how to coach. He knew how to prepare his kids. He knew how to teach and prepare his kids. He was a great teacher. Won state championships. I went and watched him. That was better than going to the coach's clinic, or that was better than reading some book or falling back on my experiences as a player. Coaching's got nothing to do with playing. I went and watched Stacy. You know, now I can't tell you how I knew to do that, other than I knew I wasn't very good. I didn't know much about it. I'm gonna go watch an expert do it, and every minute that I could find, I'd go watch him. The beauty is, you know, basketball was over, started about the time football was over, and it was before, you know, a couple 3 months before baseball started. So every afternoon I was in the gym watching him, taking notes, figuring out what he was doing. People said, well, you know, that ball's a whole lot bigger than the one you're using, but I don't care. Working with kids, teaching kids is the same, whether it's baseball, football, English, doesn't matter. There's certain commonalities here. Go watch the best one. If you don't know enough, don't be ashamed. Go watch the best one. And you know, you need to be able to know who can do it, and you need to know why they're doing it. What are they doing? You know, that's why I get asked to come in and watch these model lessons and I tell them, you know, no. I told them one today. Now, there's some duties that this person would be really good for. Teaching's not one of them. You know, you're going to need to start her working with undergraduates, and she's going to need a lot of support if you're going to have her teach. She doesn't really know how. You know, and so I hope they'll hire her. I mean, I thought she had a lot of qualities, but teaching's not one of them. But the problem is when we hire people who have qualities and we expect them to teach, and that they'll just get better by osmosis. No, they won't. Teaching is a skill, folks. And there's certain things that you have to do. And she won't get better just because she needs to or because you want her to. You've got to tell her. You're going to have to work with her. You know, we know what we're doing. If you can teach, you know, you're intentional about it. You know what you're doing. You don't just, you know, show up sober and clean clothes and hope for the best. You have certain things that you do. You're planned and you're prepared. You have your materials. You don't, in college life, you never do canned videos. You always come on live and have conversations with adults. Adults learn from conversations. You need the underpinning of your textbooks. You need to read that stuff, but why would I want to come on and read PowerPoints or textbooks to you? You do that on your own. We're here to have conversations about extending that learning and making it real. That's what adults need. I mean, now it's different, and elementary kids need different things, as Quintina said, from middle school kids. You know what middle school kids need, or elementary, and those programs are not interchangeable. They won't work the same everywhere. Adults need different than kids. You have to know that. You have to understand. You're supposed to be the educational expert, and being an expert is not identifying problems. It's identifying solutions to the problems, and that's where those one-on-ones come. And that's, this long-winded soliloquy. That's my argument. The reason why we don't have those one-on-one critical conversations is we're either not in the rooms often enough to know what's going on or what's not happening, or we don't know how to fix what's going on. That's why we don't have them. And so in the end, you got to be in those rooms. You've just got to be in those rooms to know what's happening. I'm guessing we don't have any other presentations. The other groups moving tomorrow night. So here's the idea. The first 4 evidences are content. First 2 are instructional, instructional, human resources involving parents, building your master schedule. They all go together. Now, the next one, your CAP that you're moving to now, that's about the teacher working condition survey. That's about the culture of your building. Once you get all these other pieces working, then and only then do you go to the cultural piece, where you try to work on things that make it better. But if you don't, the problem is if we start with that first, the instructional piece is lacking, or the HR piece, or we can't get to those things until we get to the core. We went through the 4 core areas. Now we'll work on culture, and then the last of your evidence is you just put it all together, and that becomes your school improvement plan. Now the fifth of the evidence is the CAP. Is kind of a standalone one. That's why there's no competencies at the end of it. It's a kind of a standalone. Once you've mastered the first 4, then you can add the culture, which encompasses everything in your building. It's kind of overarching. It's not so much a set of skills like you've been learning in the others. But again, that overarching culture. But you can't separate instruction, human resources, master schedule, and parent involvement. Those all are one thing. That's what this case study was about, is showing how all these pieces fit together in that operational model of how schools work. And then the overarching is to build a good culture where people will want to come to work and want to stay there. And then you put all that together in an improvement plan. Again, it's a skill. It's a set of skills that you have to learn and develop along the way to know what good school administration is. Same thing is and the first part of that is that knowing what good instruction is. That's the very first one that you do. It's knowing what good instruction is. And then that piece of going into the rooms and looking, we'll look and see what our scores are, good instruction is happening or not. Then we go in and find out specifically why is it happening or not happening. That's where we do our walkthroughs, our evaluations. Then we build our master schedule around what we need to have in our building based on those 2 things. And then we involve our parents, we inform and involve them. And then once we got that up and running, we work on the culture of the school. That's how we do it every day in real life. We build that school improvement plan in that order. That instructional piece comes first, then the personnel piece, then that master schedule piece, and then that community involvement. And then the overarching all of that is the cultural piece of how people get along every day and what they experience at work every day. That's is school administration in a nutshell. And the most important piece, going back, is that instructional piece, because they pay us to make a good number go up or a bad number go down. In the end, we're there to make sure kids learn. That's kind of what it is. All right. Good conversation tonight. I'm most impressed with your work as always. Again, it's not me, it's you. 10-man, what was it? Oz never did give the 10-man anything he didn't already have. Y'all had this. It's just our job to get it out this semester. I've been very pleased. You have seen your progression through the case studies. Y'all are really good now. You weren't bad to start with, but you're really good now. And that's because your knowledge base has grown and you begin to make the connections. And that's the way it always works. I'm very pleased. I couldn't be happier. Again, I read every word that you write. I enjoy it. I see your growth and development, your thought. You've all got good heart. What I really like about this group, both groups, is you got good hearts. You're in it for kids. I like that. That's the most important thing in this business. What Quintina said, the lady that she was working with, she's really good at this. She really loves the kids. That matters, and that shines through. That you enjoy the kids, that you want to do good things for them, and you want to do it at the next level. That's you want to run schools that are good for kids. That's the important piece here.
I invited her a few times in our class, so I just wanted to share that. I said, you need to sit in our class sometime.
Yeah, we'd love to have her. I have guests all the time.
Just listen. I
Yeah.
love you.
Well, I love y'all, and I learn again. I learn y'all keep me connected and grounded to what's going on in schools. This is clinical. We're not doing theoretical stuff here. We're talking about trying to change kids' lives, and we're trying to change the lives of the adults that work with the kids, make things better for them as well. We think that we have something to offer the adults that we work with, and that's why you aspire, that grit and determination to become school administrators. Is that you think that you can help the adults, and then in turn you can have a bigger impact on the kids other than just the ones in your room. That's the whole notion of school administration, is that you like working with adults. They drive you crazy sometimes, but you know that the end game here is the more that you can do for them and the better they get, the better they can do for the kids in the room. And you can have a wider impact. It's just pretty much that simple. We're trying to impact the lives of kids. And we just do it through the adults. That's our job. All right. I've told you everything I know and some that I didn't. So I will see y'all. We only got 2 more sessions. I can't believe it. We've only got 2 more. So I'll see you next week, everybody. Have a good week. Appreciate you. Thank you.